So, what's your name? What do you do?
My name is Brian Lynchard. I just dabble in real estate a little bit. I like to flip houses, got some rental houses, and do a little bit of tiny small amount of realtor work. But I guess the thing that I enjoy doing most, as far as the entrepreneurial side of what I do, and I've got a day job as well. But on the side, the entrepreneurial thing is flipping houses, and I own some rentals.
So, how is that flipping houses? Because I always thought that was a very interesting. Like, I know you see on TV these people do all these crazy things, and I'm sure that that's well out of the bounds of reality because it's a TV show and they get stupid budgets to make it into a great TV show. But in reality, what is it like to be a house flipper?
I guess it's reality for them, and there's probably that reality for some people, but for the majority of us, for the majority of house flippers, it's not like that. It's what you see on TV. You know, you got to buy a good deal. You got to get a good price.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of trying to flip a house if you're already having to do well over what you should because you couldn't get a great deal on the house to begin with? But it's just it wouldn't really make great business sense to not buy a good price house to try and flip it later.
And really, there's a saying that you make your money on the front end. You make your money on the buy. Mm-hmm. You've got absolutely have to buy at a discount. And most people are not, most of the house sellers are not in a position to really sell at a discount. But what we're looking for typically is something that needs some repairs, needs to be updated. Maybe sometimes it's somebody that's really needs to sell quickly, fast, in the range of 1 to 2 weeks, whereas the typical retail buyer, the person, what we call the owner-occupant, an owner-occupant buyer is typically going to be 45 to 60 days to close, whereas as a house flipper, we can often close in 1 to 2 weeks.
See, this is really interesting to talk about because as just a simple 22-year-old, I have not done anything in the realms of looking for a house or know anything about how a housing market works. So hearing about how a normal sale goes for a house it's staggering. Because I didn't think it would be that long out for a sale on a house.
Well, 45 to 60 days after it goes under contract.
Oh, it's after it goes. Okay.
So it could, even longer than that, from start to finish often. But so sometimes there's situations where people just really need to sell quick. I compare it to this. I think about it from the standpoint of, and I've explained to people this way. When they call me and they want to sell their house, sometimes I tell them it's kind of like you could go, if you have a car, you buy a new car, you got the old car. You can trade in your old car to the dealer, and it's over and done with quickly.
Yep. No
hassles. You get some money. Or you could try to get more money for it, but you have to deal with the hassles, and it's going to take longer. So as an investor, a house flipper, it's almost like I'm the guy that's buying that. It's almost like I'm the car dealer that's taking that trade-in in.
I got you.
Yeah, there's got to be –
It's the idea that the people feel that they have the quicker chance of getting their money and moving on with their lives.
Yes.
Than having to do a long, drawn-out process that could eventually result in the people pulling out of a deal or something like that.
Exactly. For example, I've got one under contract right now for me to buy, and it's going through probate, and it's getting delayed and delayed and delayed through the probate process.
What is the probate process as a person who doesn't know what that is?
So when someone passes away and they do not, especially I think, and I'm no attorney, I really don't understand it fully myself, but when someone passes away and there's no will, they don't have a will, it has to go before a judge and through the probate process to settle the estate. And so if there's a real estate involved, it has to go. For example, this has had to go before the judge to approve the sale of the house, even though we've got a contract. But it's getting delayed and delayed and drug out because of various different legal problems and issues.
And you don't have to go into it if you don't. But I understand what you're talking about now. Yes.
But the key to it, though, is the fact that as an investor, I'm able and willing to wait through the process, whereas the typical owner-occupant home buyer is not going to wait through that process. So So that's where I can maybe buy it at a discount. I've got to buy it at a discount. We have to buy it at a discount.
Yeah.
There's no other way to make money.
I completely understand. And so that's like the acquiring of it. Now, when you're doing the flipping, do you work directly with, do you have contractors you already work with that you have come in to do any fixes that are necessary?
I don't necessarily use contractors.
Okay.
And the job size that I'm working with, as far as like a GC, a general contractor, the price range that I work in really won't support that kind of expense. So
is this? Do you do any kind of repairs yourself? Or?
I always get that question every time I tell somebody I flip houses. Everybody asks that, and no, I don't.
Okay.
The very first house that I ever bought to flip, got it under contract, bought it, closed it, and I went down there to the house and I started spackling nail holes and whatever. And I got sick of that pretty quickly. I got sick of that real quickly.
I can understand very quickly.
So basically,
I helped install these wood ceilings, and you would not believe how hard that was. And we were all very done with it. So when I decided I want to make this table out of the same wood, everyone thought I was crazy.
So, and this is true. I think this is true for all entrepreneurs, is that if you're doing the work yourself, if it's something that you can hire out, and I can get good quality, talented, hardworking people to do a good job of painting a house or hanging doors or spackling walls or whatever for $15 an hour. Mm-hmm. So if I'm doing that work myself, I'm effectively paying myself $15 an hour.
Mm-hmm. Whereas your time doing other things might actually be more valuable. So
exactly.
It makes more sense to hire it out to someone else instead of do your time like that.
Yeah, that's the approach that I take.
Because, I guess you could spend the same time you were doing spackling as looking for potential people to buy it or looking up what designs to do, how to improve the house in total.
Or looking for the next house to buy to flip.
Or looking for the next house to buy, of course. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know. I just some things that I thought about as I was first getting into this business and starting this business, and it was kind of hard to break into it. And some things that I learned, some things that I taught myself, and some ideas that I had is that just something I remember is that breaking into the business and starting a new business, I kind of felt like I learned some things but I came up with a saying as I was starting to break into this, and it was hard to break in. I came up with a saying that said, I've got to be willing and able to do some things that others can't or won't, because there's competition. There's competition everywhere. You need an advantage. You need some things that set you apart and gives you an advantage over the competition. So that's one thing that was one thing that really stood out in my mind. The other thing that came to me was that there's a lot of difficulties, a lot of things that go bad, a lot of troubles. And I've got rental houses too. Some of these houses I've bought, I've kept as rentals, and owning rental houses is difficult.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. Since you mentioned that you did rentals houses, how does that compare? How does that compare to just flipping a house? Because in flipping a house, you get it, you improve it, you sell it off, and you don't really have to worry about that house again. But when you take a house or whatever and you fix it up and then rent it out to people, you then have to manage that house going forward. And so how do you feel about the difference between there?
I found for me that the best thing was to hire a professional property manager.
That would definitely help out there.
And it just depends upon your personality, because you really, to own rental property, you've really got to do a very thorough job, very, very thorough job of screening your tenants, and you have to be very steadfast in following your rules and your procedures. And when they're one day late, you got to send that notice. You really got to be on the ball and really be steady and strict. But back to what I was thinking, is that one thing I learned through all this, the house flipping and being a landlord, is that sometimes there's things that pop up that just are difficult, they're annoying, they're a pain in the butt, they're expensive, they're costly. But I learned to actually embrace those things as something good, because if I can overcome those things, it gives me a leg up on the competition. So when bad things happen, you're in the middle of a flip, whatever, you're working on, it's called, when you're working on remodeling it, which we call rehab. You're rehabbing.
Yeah.
You're rehabbing a house, and you find that, lo and behold, you find that there's going to be an extra $5,000 expense that you didn't expect. And that does happen.
So back in 2010, there was a flood in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
And my house got hit, and it was bad. We had to end up pulling some stuff away from the stairs that went up to our second floor. And as soon as we did that, we had to completely redo the stairs because they weren't up to codes, because they were too steep and too narrow for how high up it went. It was some weird thing where we had to elongate the steps out 2 feet to make it into codes there in Nashville. And that was one of those setbacks that you don't know you're going to encounter one day. And I'm sure there's been several like that you've encountered doing flips where you're working on something and then all of a sudden it's like, as you said, there's $5,000 that's just have to be spent.
But I've learned to actually embrace those difficulties and those challenges and be thankful for them, because another saying that I've learned to embrace: if it were easy, everybody would be doing it, and there would be no money in it.
Yes.
And so whenever something pops up, and I'm a kind of a negative type of personality by birth anyway, but I've learned that in business and being an entrepreneur, when something difficult pops up, when something negative pops up, sometimes I can actually make myself smile, because I say to myself, if I can live through this, if I can push through this, if I can beat it, if I can learn how to overcome this, I'll win, because there are a lot of other people in business, the competition, that
would see something like that and just walk away. Just
right.
be like,
or never go into
we can't do it. We can't overcome this obstacle. They don't
exactly.
try.
And there's competition. There's always competition in any business. And if you can be the one that can smile in the face of the problems and overcome them, and that's hard for me to do. I'm kind of a natural griper and complainer anyway. But if you can overcome the problems, beat the problems, and move on and survive, a lot of other people are not even willing to step up to the problems and step up to the plate in the first place. So I hear people all the time say, "Oh, I could never own rental properties because it's just such a pain in the tail to own rental properties." Well, yeah, it is. It is, and that's why there's opportunity there. Basically, in a nutshell, difficulties and problems create opportunity.
Now, so I know you said that you found a rental agency to handle your properties, but maybe before that, was there ever a time where you had difficult tenants or really easy tenants? Did that help out at all with rental property? Is that finding the right renters really helped out, or did it make too much of a difference?
Oh, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference, and that's one thing that my current property manager does a very good job of, is actually screening the tenants. And when I was managing my own properties, I didn't necessarily do a very good job of that. So you have to really, if you're going to be a landlord and manage your own properties, you really need to have the right mentality for that. And it's a very tough business. It's a very tough business to be in.
All right. What is there anything else, or do you think good talk?
Oh yes.
I know I learned a lot, and I'm really so. Your company was again?
I just really don't have a name. It's just me. I buy houses.
Okay, so let's just get your name in again for
Brian Lynchard. Brian
Lynchard. All right. So if do you do business mostly in Cookeville or in surrounding areas?
Surrounding counties? I've got I flip houses in Putnam, White, DeKalb, maybe Warren County. I've got a couple of rentals in Warren County. I would look at Overton County, Cumberland County, Jackson County, but.
All right. Well, if you're ever in those counties and you find a property owned by him, you're probably in good hands. All right. Thank you.
Just need to sell a house and sell it quickly,
or
know
if you
someone
just
that does.
Sell a house. Well, thank you for coming on today. It was a really good chat.
All right. Thank you.